Okay, guys, we just finally got back from watching Child's Play 2019.
Oh boy.
Yeah, and so what's this about post content? You seem to really like that channel. It seems like a really good YouTube channel.
I mean, we enjoyed it more than we enjoyed this movie, that's for damn sure.
Yeah, it's definitely for sure. Okay, so Child's Play 2019 is the newest corporate cash in to an 80s horror franchise that honestly should not have even been made because the Child's Play series is going on to this very day. I mean, for fuck's sake, Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky are significantly closer to modern day than anything this movie had.
Yeah.
I mean, the only gimmick this movie really had with bringing Chucky into the modern age is Bluetooth Wi-Fi speaker shit.
Yeah, everything was just fucking Alexa.
Yeah, it's just killer Alexa. So, the idea behind this movie is it's a complete retelling of Child's Play with Andy being, I guess a 12-year-old kid now, and Chucky being a defective AI-controlled doll.
Rather than a fucking doll possessed by a spirit.
Yeah, a serial killer spirit. So, I guess we just have to cut through the bullshit and go right into talking about the movie. It really is just watchable.
Yeah, it's watchable. You don't want to say bad because it makes you feel bad whenever you say it's bad.
Yeah. As soon as you directly go into no, this movie was shit, it's bad, you start to get reminded of well, this part was pretty good, and this has an actor I like, and this part's pretty decent. But then you're reminded of all the shit you just didn't really like.
Yeah, it was definitely entertaining while we watched it. We were in a pretty empty movie theater,
yeah.
But we got some laughs during it, and we were actually entertained by it. So it's got that going for it.
Yeah, it has some chuckle-worthy moments. Ironically, I think the parts where it wasn't trying to be funny are funnier than parts where they're trying super hard for a joke.
Yeah, I felt like any time it's trying to be serious felt funnier than the intentional jokes.
Yeah.
Especially anything involving the actual Chucky doll.
Yeah, where, we obviously have to address the elephant in the room here. Mark Hamill as Chucky, I feel like had potential, but he's never giving an opportunity to really be that sadistic killer doll that Chucky usually is.
Yeah, there's one moment kind of towards the end of the movie where it feels like he's finally starting to fill into the role. Obviously not as good as
Brad
Dourif, but still he feels like he's coming into his own. And then that just fucking gets dropped, and then it's suddenly in the end of the movie.
Yeah, and really, it is sad because you can tell Mark Hamill really does try. I always got the vibe that he was really trying to give a new personality to Chucky. Yeah. With the fact that Chucky in this has a new, I guess you could say, origin, where instead of it being a serial killer possessing a doll in order to escape death, and now he's essentially a doll that was hacked while in the factory. And all of his, it said inhibitors were turned off, which that raises a few questions.
Yeah, exactly how much stuff did you program these dolls to be used for? But they turn off, Chucky can swear now instead of the normal buddy dolls in this universe can't swear or cause harm to people. But they turn those inhibitors off in the factory, yeah. Along with some other shit that I didn't read.
Yeah, well, a lot of it was kind of off-screen, where it's just cutting him away from the computer, but you can still hear the dude typing.
Yeah.
Yeah, and honestly, the idea isn't that bad, but it just kind of raises a few questions of okay, swearing inhibitor, I understand, because the doll naturally picks up on and repeats what people say, because it's trying to be your friend. So I can understand a kid's trying to get it to say fuck, and they don't want the doll saying fuck, because, ooh, that's a PR nightmare, we don't need these parents thinking these dolls swear all the time.
Yeah.
I understand that. But the violence inhibitor thing was a little weird.
I mean, I always assume that anytime you have an AI, you put a no violence against human, clause on any program you do just as a in case.
Maybe in a horror movie, but I've never assumed that was a thing when they were programming Alexa.
I mean, I assumed that was a thing when they programmed Alexa.
I mean, maybe I'm just not that well versed in AI programming, but whatever.
You're the motherfucker that brings about the Terminator apocalypse.
Yeah. Probably. But no, okay, so basically Chucky's now basically a killer robot, and the central idea of the movie is that Chucky is genuinely trying to be Andy's friend, and they do play with the whole relationship going sour with Chucky, just learning the wrong ways to meet people and greet people, and Eventually, he does start getting into killing people. And I do like that, where you see that Chucky is doing these things because he thinks it's in Andy's best interest, and he doesn't understand that Andy doesn't want Chucky to kill people. So, from that aspect, with just the fact that this is a brand new Child's Play, completely ignoring the original, I understand it, and I'm okay with it. It's just the fact that, as stated, Chucky's not as sadistic as he was in the older movies, which really makes up a bulk of the franchise. Just seeing how Brad Dourif relishes in being this evil serial killer. Like, in the newest movie, him and a bunch of the other little Chucky dolls are joking about how they cut a dude's stomach open and you can see steam coming off of his fucking organs. I mean, going from that to just Chucky, kind of, sort of, maybe, sort of making a one-liner while he fucking stabs the dude is just, it's a downgrade.
Yeah, definitely a downgrade from what we actually had before. I honestly feel like this movie would have been better if they pretty much just took the kid from Brightburn and replaced Chucky with him.
Yeah.
Because then it would have just been a better version of both movies.
Yeah, where at the very least you could have had a more sadistic doll, a more interesting way that people can die. Because some of the kills are pretty fun, but even then you can tell that, man, compared to some of the violence in the other ones, this is nowhere near that bad. It's almost as bad as fucking Child's Play 1 with how kind of cut back the violence is.
Yeah, I will say this. I did really like the idea of Chucky starting out as a genuine friend, and then he actually turns evil.
Yeah, the actual transformation. The reason we brought up Brightburn is because Chucky has a more organic shift to evil than the movie specifically focusing on a character's shift into evil.
Yeah. Which, I mean, I guess that's a good thing for the movie, because it did feel organic. So you have this fucking electronic Alexa doll running around, and it somehow feels like alive.
Yeah.
Obviously not like actually alive, but it felt organic.
Yeah, it felt like an actual thing.
Yeah.
And I guess a big thing to point out is the fact that all of the Chucky movies have relied almost completely on prosthetics. Where it's the doll's actually moving. A lot of time they get someone in a suit or a costume and just play with their perspective to mimic Chucky moving. Curse of Chucky had a scene where they sure use stop motion when he's going down the stairs, and it always looked pretty good. In this, there is a significant and blatant use of CG.
Yeah, they definitely use CG in a couple parts, and it'd be okay if you could look at it and it's like, oh, well, I couldn't really tell the difference anyways. But it's so blatant that at one point they bring in different models of Chucky dolls in the movie, and one of them turns the corner, and my first thought was the gingerbread men from Krampus.
Yeah.
That's how bad it was.
Yeah, where it's so clearly CG that it's not even funny. And really, one thing that is kind of heartbreaking about the movie is the fact that it's just it just feels like a really neutered version of just a standard Chucky movie. Not even like a neutered version of the greats of the franchise. An average Chucky movie was more bloody, more violent, and just more fun than this.
Yeah.
Something like fucking Child's Play 2, there was way more violence.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, there was way more violence. Seeing just Chucky get ripped apart at the end of the factory, it's that's worse than any kill in this fucking movie.
Yeah, it's really odd too, because a lot of the kills seem, some of the kills seem fairly violent.
Yeah, they have potential.
A guy getting spun up into a machine, that should be incredibly violent, but for some reason it doesn't have a violent feel to it.
Yeah, it's and this dude literally gets his fucking face ripped off.
Yeah.
And the aftermath is pretty violent. You actually see his skull and all that, but actually seeing it's too quick and too dark to really get a good look. And they try to make the big thing is Chucky stabs him. It's I don't give a fuck that he stabs him. I give a fuck about the fact that he just bent the dude's head into a fucking wheat thresher, or whatever the hell that thing was.
Yeah, rototiller.
Yeah, rototiller. That's the part that fucking mattered, not the stabbing. So it is weird. There are apparent rumors that they did this on purpose to cut down the level of violence so they could probably sell it in Chinese theaters or something like that. Which, if that's the case, maybe. But even then, it's China's not really the ones you're shooting for. You're shooting for people that have been watching the franchise for fucking 30 years.
Yeah.
So, I don't understand it from that perspective.
Yeah, it seems really really stupid on their part to cut down the violence. But then again, it also seems stupid to try and reboot a franchise that's currently ongoing. So
yeah, that is very true. And I guess we can get into some of the performances. There's nobody that really stood out too much as like their god awful actor.
No, not at all. Even the actors that were on the bad end of the scale in this movie were pretty decent. Like some of the kids were kind of like annoying.
The two friends stick out way too much as like we want to be seen as, it's a literal definition of overacting, where they're trying so hard to be good that it's just going the complete opposite direction, and you get a headache when they're on screen.
Yeah.
The actual kid that plays Andy, I actually think is pretty good.
Yeah, I really liked him, especially compared to the original movies Andy.
Yeah.
I don't really know if it's a fair comparison because this kid's probably like 13 or 14, maybe 12, as opposed to Andy being like, what, 5 or 6?
Yeah, well, I'll go ahead and, get the fair comparison out of the way. Compared to like Child's Play 3 Andy,
he's a million times better. Fuck Child's Play 3 Andy.
Yeah, like this Andy is way more assertive. He's actually willing to like kind of stand toe to toe with Chucky.
Yeah.
And this doesn't have the weird logic jumps that a lot of the other movies had, where it's like, hey, you found X, therefore this has to have happened. This actually feels like when there's a logic jump, it makes more sense.
Yeah, like people think Andy's crazy because he's saying Chucky's doing all these things, but people walk in on him like actively doing things that would make you think, oh, this kid's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's like he's just nuts. So it makes more sense, and they do build up a subplot of they think Andy did it, but it actually has the most legitimate possible reason why.
Yeah.
Like it's actually explained, and right there you're like, holy shit, that's way better than something like fucking, once again, Child's Play 3 or fucking Bride of Chucky.
Oof.
Like, oh man, Bride of Chucky still haunts me with how bad that shit got stupid.
Yeah.
But all in all, it is fun, it's watchable, it's alright. If you can find a way to watch this for free, like maybe if it's on Netflix or free on like Amazon Prime or something, I recommend it. Paying money for it though,
yeah, I wouldn't want to spend like $15 or $20 at Walmart or something and pick this off the shelf to watch it. If it ever gets added to Netflix or Hulu, that would be fine.
Yeah, that would definitely be a good way to watch it. And if obviously you're a Child's Play fanboy, you kind of have to watch it just because it's another one in the franchise. One thing that is heartbreaking is, they never even tried to tie this into the actual universe, where obviously they couldn't because they wanted this to be separate, but just a little wink or a nod would have been great. But this is actually one of those cases where the fan service is so low that honestly, if you just changed the doll's look and the name, this would be a completely different movie.
Yeah. Another thing I wanted to kind of harp on is the look of the doll for Chucky. Actually, Chucky, not none of the other good guy dolls or buddy dolls, rather. It looks weird, and it looks much worse than the Chucky dolls they had in the other movies. Even the newer ones they used in Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky.
Oh, those look significantly better.
Yeah, and those I thought those dolls looked kind of on the worst end of the Chucky dolls.
Yeah.
But it's kind of nuts how, I don't want to say bad.
Yeah, once again, it's one of those where you feel bad for outright saying bad, but it's
You feel
bad.
bad for saying bad because you look at it and you're like, man, they put some effort into that. But fuck them for putting effort into it because I want to say it's shit.
Yeah, because the face, like, there's even a scene where they try to make a joke that Chucky looks creepy. Like, Andy's trying to make him, get a creepy face.
Yeah.
But it's never creepy.
Yeah, it's never creepy to us. And then Andy's like, oh yeah, that's pretty creepy. But the doll's just normal face is creepier than anything, like him trying to yell and all that stupid shit.
Yeah, it's like, it just doesn't look great. It's I don't want to say it feels lazy, because I do feel like people probably put effort into this, but it just doesn't feel right. I think that perfectly describes the movie. It doesn't feel right.
You feel bad for saying something feels off, but something just feels off about this movie.
And it's not even like, we're trying to say like, oh, every single Chucky movie needs to be the exact same thing. If you've been following this franchise, they change so radically between movie to movie that it's impossible to say that there's a standard Child's Play formula.
Yeah.
The closest you can get is killer doll stalks a kid.
Yeah.
That's about it. Other than that, every single movie's had its own rules. So really, all we're asking is make the doll creepy.
Make the doll creepy. Like at least try something like a little fan servicey whenever it comes to things like this, because this
They dropped like one fan service line and they didn't even like finish it.
Yeah.
Where Chucky gets shot at the end and the dude that shot him says, "This is the end." It's like, yeah, that's a reference to the line in the first movie.
Where he goes, "This is the end, buddy."
Yeah, it's like, this is the end, friend. That was the exact line.
Okay. Yep. It's this is the end, friend, and it's like, no, fuck you, we're not gonna finish it. We're not that old, Chucky. We're the one that's not gonna do as well.
Yeah. And they try to do a thing where they make his eyes red whenever he goes into like killer doll mode, and it's like,
which is really odd. Like, you don't really need a reason. Like, you don't really need a visual indicator that killer doll is killer. I think the fact that he has a knife would do well enough. Yeah,
that's it. And really, I'm just disappointed at the complete lack of sadism on Chucky's part. Every single kill, as stated, feels like it should be a lot more fucked up than they are.
Yeah,
they just aren't.
The kills on Chucky's part feel like lackluster, and also like, I mean,
and they really shouldn't, because they have great setups.
Yeah, they do have really good setups. I think a lot of it is they don't really draw attention to the parts that would make it painful, like a guy falling and his legs break and the bones jut out. Yeah. They don't really draw attention to that. It's like a quarter of a second that it's there, and
you
then
sort
it
of
cuts away.
You sort of see the legs pop out of his skin.
Yeah, and a guy gets his hands burned off, but like, I think the temperature goes up to like
200 something degrees.
Over 200 something degrees, and you don't really. It might as well just be him sweating, but he's screaming.
And his like fingers are like slowly coming off the pipe he's on. That's the one from the trailer with this big fat guy over the saw blade.
Yeah, and his fingers aren't falling apart either. It's just like slipping.
Yeah. So, as I say, I think that does come into the fact of they wanted an option to edit this down to PG-13.
Yeah, it really feels like at this point it should have just been a PG-13 movie. We even had kids in the movie theater, anyways. Like several kids in the movie theater, and one of them was like a 6-year-old that came in there and was like, "Oh, I'm already scared," before the movie started.
Yeah, she was literally saying to her older brother, "It's like, if I get scared, I'm going to hold on to your arm." As soon as we were leaving the theater, I heard that kid say, "That wasn't scary at all."
Yeah.
It's like when a 6-year-old child can walk into an R-rated horror movie that specifically has shitloads of blood and violence and cursing in it, and jump scares, and say it's not scary, you fucked up.
Yeah. I'll say this about the mom that played Andy's, the woman that played Andy's mom. I thought she did pretty well.
She did good.
I can't think off the top of my head where I know her from.
All I know is she's a big comedian. She's into a whole bunch of comedy stuff. I try my best to like not really describe actors, because I'm of the opinion that if you describe an actor, all people are going to think of is the actor when they go into something. You kind of want to be a bit more immersed in it. Yeah. Obviously, if they're super famous, like a Brad Dourif, there's no getting around it. But if they're relatively like smaller, I kind of like to like just not really say their name.
Yeah, I mean, like she had a face that was very familiar. Like she had a very snarky face, which I kept getting called back to. And she was pretty snarky in this movie too. But she fit really well as like a modern like mother-son couple.
Yeah, where she's being super snarky and Andy's being super snarky back to her. One thing they always call attention to is that apparently Andy has like some kind of hearing issue.
Yeah, for some reason Andy has a hearing issue in this movie, and it's only brought up like
a few times.
I think 3 times total. At the beginning of the movie, hearing aid gets knocked out, and then Chucky talks to the hearing aid at one point, and as far as I can tell,
that's about it.
That's it. Yeah,
and it never really ever comes up or is of much consequence to anything. I think they literally just want to make Andy like disabled.
I'm not sure. Like, I feel like they essentially like looked at the girl from A Quiet Place and were like, let's make Andy that, but mix it with Stranger Things.
Yeah, that's pretty much exactly it. Because I think that could have been a great way of really emphasizing how vulnerable Andy is compared to this doll. Where that's something like what Curse of Chucky brought up, where Nika is paralyzed. She's in a wheelchair. She physically is on a lower level than Chucky. So I think what they were trying to do is ape something like that, but it just never really went anywhere. It just feels like they made him disabled to make him disabled.
Yeah, like maybe put a tag on it if you're searching for the movie or something.
Yeah, and really, as I said, it never even comes up. It's not even a thing where he has to talk in sign language or is unable to communicate properly. He can talk properly. He can hear people properly. He just has a hearing aid.
Yeah, it's really just a really big missed opportunity. And I don't know if this is just me or if other people are starting to feel the fatigue of Stranger Things kids, where like Andy in this starts off as kind of a pushover pussy.
Yeah, he's kind of a introverted little wimp. He literally doesn't have friends. He's too shy to make them.
He doesn't. He literally doesn't have any friends or anything like that. He can't stand up to his stepdad or anything. But by the end of the movie, I think Andy gets a fucking one-liner, like towards the end of the movie.
Yeah.
And he's taking on Chucky with no reserve. He's climbing to the top of like pallets and shit, like cutting things down and different things. It doesn't feel deserved.
Well, I'm fine with it because of the fact that it is supposed to be the end of the movie, badass moment. The problem comes from the fact that, really, as stated, the journey doesn't feel like it really matches. Because as soon as he meets his two dumbass friends, the two kids that overact way too much, and just aren't really that great, he almost starts like becoming way more confident. And I get there's time lapses where he's spending time with him and Chucky and all that. It just doesn't really feel, as stated, it feels off. It doesn't feel right.
Yeah, it doesn't feel earned. It just feels off, like the whole movie as a whole does.
It's almost impossible to describe. It's like it should just be a straight line, and yet it feels like up and down, up and down, up and down. Like it's a zigzag in parts.
Yeah, and it really shouldn't. It's a child's play movie. It should be pretty cut and paste. You know, you have your do's, you have your don'ts, but somehow they fucking mix them up.
Yeah, they mix them up, and I really think the best way to describe this movie is you're listening to a song that is pretty good. You're not really the best fan of it or anything like that. And throughout the song, there's just pops and skips in the audio. You know, where maybe there's a section of the song where it'll repeat. And not even like the song is repeating because it's like the repeating chorus. I mean, it'll literally just go back a few seconds and then just keep going. Something like that, where every so often you just feel like this weird jolt of, wait, what? Or, huh? And yeah, that's about the best way to describe Child's Play 2019.
Yeah, just a mediocre cover of something better.
A mediocre cover of something better that's not even that great, like, to listen to.
Yeah.
So, that's about it.
See ya.